So yeah, they've got this guy building on what he's done before, trying new things. I don't think he'll be trying to figure out a formula or a grand design that evolves. It'll all be instinct. His gut will be telling him, I'm going to try this. And then there is that lovely, holy moment where it all joins together into one thing. And for Jeff, that was Grid Runner.
It was sort of like Centipede. It was based off Centipede. But I'd got to the point where I enjoyed putting my own spin on things. I was no longer content just to try and copy an arcade game. I wanted to do something else.
I like the idea that shooting things creates obstructions which then alter the path of things to come. And that does happen in Grid Runner to an extent. I'd put lasers and stuff in and made it much more of a space theme, a garden theme. And in Grid Runner, every time the laser pulses, all the obstacles on the field advance one level of evolution, and they've got a maximum of 6 they can go through, and then they turn into a bomb and fall down.
It was a nice game. I thought it was quite nice. It took me a week start to finish. And we had a contract to sell the game in the US. I think it was one of the first Commodore shows. And this American guy in a suit came and was looking at what everybody was doing there, and came over to us and said to me, "We like Andy's attack, and could you put that on a cartridge for us to sell in the US?" True to his word, he went back and I figured out how to put the game on a cartridge, and they started selling it. And it sold okay, but it got our foot in the door over there, and they wanted more games. So I made Grid Runner, and I sent out a copy to the guy in the US. And here's what I've just done. I was woken up from sleep by the phone ringing, and I got up, and it was like 3:30 in the morning, something like that. I'm going to go out and see what's what. The phone rings, and the guy goes, "That game's amazing, we've been playing it for like 8 hours, I can't believe how good it is." So you're probably going to make some decent money off this. I'm like, "Oh, okay. And I went back to bed and back to sleep, woke up in the morning and thought, is that just a dream I had last night about somebody ringing me up and saying I'm going to make some money? And thankfully I'd written down on the pad by the phone what had been said. So. And sure enough, they did a great job of selling that game. I think it got to number 1 on at least one of the US software charts at some point, and made us a fair bit of money. I think that was the point where my parents realised that something was really up. Maybe this is going to work out quite well. We've done so many of them, really. We did Grid Runner on the 8-bits that was more or less just plain Grid Runner that we had on the VIC-20, except the different resolutions. Then I did Super Grid Runner on the ST and Amiga that was controlled with a mouse, and you had like a detachable nose cone which you could place in one part of the screen, and then you could move to another side and they'd both be firing, and you could use the right mouse button to retrieve it at any time, a bit like the nose cone in R-Type. Then we had Grid Runner on the Pocket PC. The thing there was you had to rescue sheep that were coming down the screen, and if you got killed, then the pieces of your wreckage would start to fall down, but if you managed to guide them onto the back of a sheep, then you get a sheepy save and come back to life. And that actually came from a bug. That came from a bug where if you died, then it would act as if you'd picked up the sheep when you hit it. And I thought, it started happening quite a bit. I thought, that's actually quite a nice mechanic, so that when you die, you can retrieve yourself. Grid Runner Revolution. There's a lot more stuff going on in there. It's a much more advanced game in some ways. I ripped off sounds from just about all my favourite 1980s arcade games because I wanted it to sound like a 1980s arcade room. You know that feeling when you walk in and there's just all these sounds going off all around you? That's what I want to sound like playing Grid Runner, because it's supposed to be the evocation of an arcade game that never existed. It's done in the style of a Namco coin-op, so it needs that same kind of atmosphere around it. I think the Grid Runner on the iPhone, it's simpler than some of the other versions, but it's very pure, it's very arcade-like, and it's lovely. I think the most recent version, by taking Grid Runner back to its roots and then just building a few simple enhancements, I think I've come up with a better game. Because your power-up stack, you start out, you just got to pew out the front, and that gets a bit faster as you shoot things, so you pew a bit faster.
And you get various little tiles that power you up, and they may give you 4-way pew 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 or something like that for a little bit. But you get the stacking effect. So you can have 3 or 4 of these things come together, and then suddenly you're just this intense fire flower of like shots just bursting out and flooding the whole thing. You just feel like a god for a few seconds. And it's nice. So it makes you, it keeps you tied into the game. It makes you feel, it gives you a little rush of like, sort of little touch of euphoria there to help you along your way.
countryside. I ended up buying this little house in Wales, in this beautiful little valley. I wanted to have a bit of space for beasties, really.
Most spotty ears.
You know, like to keep pet sheep. When you're getting stressed out in front of the machine and you're indoors all day, and it's so nice just to be able to like go out and take a stroll in the field. You can't really be stressed out around sheep.
Morning, Jerry.
Like Minter will like go off to, you know, feed the sheep in the morning and do a nice 10-minute long Twitter video of him just feeding crackers to his sheep.
I'm sure you've seen Jeff's legendary sheep time videos that he does. You know, just let's go out and mooch with the sheep in the morning. Well, we can stream it from anywhere on the farm because we've got a Wi-Fi network all across the fields. And you know, it's the perfect Geek 7, isn't it? It's like, you know, I'm surrounded by green fields, but I've got Wi-Fi. What more do you need?
Jeff's living this gentle, suburban, modest sort of lifestyle where like his greatest indulgence is like sheep or like llamas, having, you know, this handful of animal companions.
Oh, I got the llamas in 2001. I got a pair of llamas then, but one of them died last year. We found out at the time he was probably one of the oldest llamas in Britain. He was like 25 years old, which is an extremely good age for a llama. The whole llama thing came about basically because my parents had one of these Time Life books about South America, and it had a nice illustration of a llama in it. I like the look of the llama. It's like an interesting beastie, and I used to reference it in some of my early work. When I was thinking of a name for the software company, I'd written a little program on the VIC-20 which effectively let me draw on a little square of characters. I could draw like a little high-res design. I drew this little llama in there, and I wrote underneath it Llamasoft with 3 exclamation marks after it. I thought, yeah, that's what I'm going to call my software company. It's going to be called Llamasoft.
Jeff is extremely unique in what he's done from day one. Jeff, from the very beginning, I think, knew what great gameplay was. And he throws a bunch of beasties in there and put his own trademark on it.
But I didn't really go into the games that much until Attack of the Mutant Camels. Again, it's based on somebody else's game. I'd been to Winchester. There was a little video game shop in there. I can't remember what my parents were doing down there, but while I was just hanging out in town while they were there, I went in this shop, thought I could play some of they had VCS games in there, and they had the Parker Brothers Empire Strikes Back game. And it's fairly crude, but they've got these big blocky walkers that walk along. And I played it. Didn't at that point think camels. The camels thing came when I saw a review of that game in Computer Video Games, and they described these walkers as being like giant mechanical camels. And I thought, actually, you could do a game like that, but why not have them be giant mutant camels? It was a bit rough. The camels looked like 2 fat guys in a camel pantomime costume, and the scrolling was very chunk res. I hadn't really worked out at that point how to do the fine scrolling on the Commodore 64. That sort of set the direction. Things kind of went from there, really. That was what Llamasoft was going to be. We were going to be the people who did these games with these weird animals in.
Well, my favorite Jeff Minter game is Revenge of the Mutant Camels. So I remember the first time I loaded it up, and I was like, what the hell is this? Am I controlling a camel? And the camel is shooting. I was expecting a ship or whatever, you know, because back in those days, camel was not the protagonist of a game until Jeff came along. And I think that's really, really cool and makes him unique, and his game's unique as well. And it taught me that there is no limits when it comes to making games. You can do whatever you want. And Jeff showed me that.
To me, playing a game is not just about getting to the end and beating the final boss. The actual playing of the game should be the reward in and of itself. I mean, the journey should be the valuable part, not the conclusion. You don't just want to get to the end of the game and say, oh, I've done that, I'll cross it off and put it aside. I want to go, one of my games to be certain that people will come back to and think, oh, I'm going to play that. May not get my high score, may not even get to the end. I want to play it just because I really, really enjoy the experience playing. It's about listening to a music album. You listen to it again and again. You don't just listen to it once, oh, I've heard the lyrics now, I'll put that aside and I'll never listen to it again. You listen to it because it makes you feel good, because it's uplifting, or because it speaks to you in some way. And that's what I want when I'm designing a game now. I want to make an experience which is just makes you smile, which gives you that buzz, which just makes you feel good.
He clearly loved games and came from a place of, Atari and classic coin ops. And when you think about game developers that learn their craft by riffing on their favorite arcade games at the time, I think Jeff is very much of that school. Like a lot of the games that he was like, well, what happens if you did Asteroids or Missile Command or whatever, but it was sheep and llamas and goats instead of those things, and that's how he made it his own.
One of the things that fascinates me about some of the early games, because they were very constrained by hardware limitations, you could often only have a very small set of rules, but the very best games, out of that small set of rules, you could get a lot of complex behaviours emerging. But essentially it's all a feedback loop though, isn't it? It's all about you doing something and the game feeding something back to you. So basically what you're doing when you're creating a game is you're fine-tuning that feedback loop. You're defining what it is, you're defining what the stimulus and response is going to be, and you try and make that satisfying for the player. And that could apply to any game, I think. That essentially that is the core of what's happening. So what I'm doing when I'm trying to make a game, I'm trying to make you feel a particular way. I'm trying to make you feel that way by tuning this loop until it feels really good. There's a point where, for me, it clicks and it starts to feel nice. And when I feel that, then that's the direction I go in. Balancing and refining that feedback loop and making it feel good is the essence of game design, really. What story you stick on top of that is up to you. For me, game design isn't something that you start out doing and you don't write down the whole design on a piece of paper and submit it to people as a pitch and then go off and hire programmers and make it. It's something that you make as you go along and is fine-tuned as you move in different directions. You feel the direction it needs to go in. But it's all about this feedback loop. That's the core of it. So the first things I do when I'm making a game is implement the player and give them a little bit of a world to move around in and implement what they're going to do, be that shooting or jumping or whatever, and play with that and fine-tune that and get the feel for that. And as you do that, then often other little things will suggest themselves and you kind of can build on it and add more stuff to it. It'll just take iteration. You'll just play it and play it and play it and play it, and the bits which you don't like, you'll file off, if you like, and the bits which you like, you can enhance. But for me, it's just playing it and playing it and playing it and playing it until I'm satisfied. And when I'm working on a game, I will be, the last thing I do at night will be to play the game for an hour or so. Every single night I'll be playing it. Every single night I'll be just going over myself, what I like, what I don't like, which direction I need to go in. It's just a lot of hard work like that, really. I was quite guilty in some of my early game designs of having difficult skills. It went like that, and it's not really the most effective way to entertain your users, really. There's level 3 and the liquor ships in Iridis Alpha. Yeah, and the liquor ships were perhaps in the wrong slot. I mean, putting them on level 3 was perhaps not the kindest thing to do. If I was redoing that game now, I would put them a bit further away.
I feel like we don't talk about that game enough. There was some very interesting stuff going on in that game. It was like a split screen thing that was happening, and it was very weird. And again, all of Jeff's games are weird, but they're weird in a way that they're almost kind of challenging you to understand them. It's not clear what you're supposed to be doing, but the genius of them is if you just give it 5 minutes, give it 10 minutes, and it'll click, and you go, oh, now I get it. I
learned something about difficulty. Especially, I've always been learning about difficulty. It's very important to allow people some levels of grace to find their way in before you start turning the screws. And then even when you do turn the screws and you've made somebody stagger through a level and they've maybe got like one life left, it can be nice to have a level that plateaus a bit or even goes down a bit and gives them a chance to recover and get a few lives back. So the early levels of my games now tend to be a lot less door slammy than they used to be back in the day. Certainly no level 3 liquor ships.